Okay, I've started a new video. This is a video of the moon, digital collection of electromagnetic nanocarbon from the moon level, from what we call the moon. I was trying to play Elon Musk videos in the background on with Jordan Peterson, but I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna get sick to my stomach because I cannot listen to these lying motherfuckers, especially when everybody repeats the lies and they go along with these lies. So I'm not gonna make myself sick making these videos. So I'm just gonna play this lady that Jordan Peterson's on with this other woman, who I like way better than Elon Musk. This girl here that Jordan that you don't like, she's way easier to listen to than Elon Musk. Uh, so I don't know. That's why it worries me. It worries me. Some of the people that you're looking up to and who you're claiming are good people. No, they're not. All right, where the fuck was I? Right here somewhere. All right.
How much responsibility do you feel that you have, particularly to guys the alt-right, who, as you say, some of them have enjoyed your work and say,
No,
I'm
they
not one of
haven't.
I'm not one of you guys. I'm not with you guys.
They haven't enjoyed my work.
I've definitely read bits on the internet.
Read more.
You've sold 2 million copies of 12 Rules for Life. You have 800,000 followers on Twitter, 1.4 million followers on YouTube. What is it that you're selling that so many people want to buy?
I don't think I'm selling anything.
Well, I went to a show where you were selling tickets to your show, so people are willing to pay a lot of money to see you speak. You know, what is it that you think that people are hungry for? They want to hear from you.
They're hungry for a discussion of the relationship between responsibility and meaning. And we haven't had that discussion in our culture for 50 years. We've concentrated on rights and privileges, and freedom and impulsive pleasure, and those are all useful in their place, but they're shallow, and that's not good, because if people are moored shallowly, then storms wreck them, and storms come along. So I'm talking to people about how they can build a foundation underneath them that works, and people need to know that, because otherwise their lives are harder than they need to be.
Well, what is it that you have that no one else has? What are you offering that no one else is right now?
Well, I think that is what I'm offering. That's not part of the public discussion, and it's grounded in my clinical knowledge. So I've been a clinician for a very long time, and I'm familiar with the works of most of the great 20th century clinicians, and a reasonable amount of philosophy, and a good swath of literature, and I'm a credible scientist, and so I can bring that all together. And I've tried to bring it all together and to make a case for the significance of individual life and the psychological necessity of courage and nobility and responsibility, these things that sound old-fashioned, but are old-fashioned in the best sense. They're old-fashioned because they've lasted forever and they're absolutely necessary. And people need a call to responsibility because they need to mature. They need to want to be adults. And I don't think we do a very good job in our culture of making a case for why it's a good thing to be an adult.
And two things really made you famous, which is, first of all, is the book, 12 Rules for Life. The second one, I think, was an interview that went viral with Kathy Newman of Channel 4 News, which you talked about men and women.
Podcasts help plenty.
All right, he's got a big following. But that was, I think, really fascinating, that interview, because it was specifically about men and women. And you said at the time, YouTube skews very male and your fan base is very male. Is that still the case? Are you still primarily talking to men?
I would say the talks are probably 60-40, 65-35 male to female. The book sales, I don't know. I doubt it, because usually it's women who buy books, although men do buy nonfiction if they buy books. We don't know the demographics on the books. But the book has definitely expanded my audience, I would say. And that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I never set out specifically to talk to men. My students for most years at university have been primarily female. I think most of my graduate students have been female. It might be about 50-50, but I think it would probably tilt more in the direction of female. So it wasn't something I set out to do. I think, though, that, as I said earlier, can't tell how much of it is.
Okay. So there's this one here. Eye, nose, mouth right here, goatee, beard thing going on here, right? Still can't make out the ear. The Scotsman that this is going to turn into doesn't happen until the next turn. Because I'm doing 360s on my telescope with my camera, but I wanted to point this one out. You see how the angles of perspective and also distances. So distance and angles of perspective will allow the lights and shadows to show you the imagery and all of these different images that make up the moon. So I can't point them all out. I'm not going to point, but there are thousands of them in here. I was just pointing out in the last video the Disney one's coming up as well. When this head ends up down in this area for that angle, that's when you're going to catch that one. Otherwise, right now you're getting the eye, nose, and mouth of this other large animal. Or is it a human? Looks animal. I don't know which one. Feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast. The moon holds the same imagery as everywhere else. That's how you know that it's that's how you know the true creator is involved. And that's how you know the true creator's energy is the one building these images for us. I'm going to press play. I'm tempted to take out some cropping tools and stuff like that, but I just listened to Elon Musk for 10 minutes and now I'm aggravated. So, I don't know. I'm just going to run these through.
That's not my conception of
Well,
patriarchy.
you-
And I don't require men or advise them to be nice.
Well,
Ever.
well, you do talk about the guy who's the tampon king, the sanitary towel king of India,
I
right?
wouldn't call that nice.
Okay,
I'd
what
call
would you-
that brave.
Okay.
Did you read about his life when he was trying to develop that?
Yeah.
God, it was absolutely miserable, and he did it anyways. He
Right.
freed all sorts of women as a consequence.
And I think
It's
that
not
was-
nice. That's courageous. That's noble. That's visionary. It's not nice.
I think it is also nice. I think it is also something that is, it is honouring your social obligations.
I'm not so sure that that's a social obligation because many other people would have done it had it been a social obligation. He said what he was concerned about. He saw that his wife was suffering with her monthly period and had to choose between feeding her family and taking care of herself properly, and chose to feed her family and thought he would do something about that. That goes way past nice, especially given what he had to suffer through to do all the experimentation that produced his eventual technology. So, this whole patriarchy thing, I think you have no idea how pernicious and dangerous it is.
Well, no,
You
I
know,
don't.
men
I
and
really don't.
women
Go on.
Throughout history have fundamentally cooperated to push back against the absolute catastrophe of existence. A terrible death rate, the probability of chronic starvation, early death, disease, the difficulty of raising children with all the death that was associated with that. And to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchy is it's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men.
I mean, I absolutely disagree with you. I think that's like saying slavery in the US was actually most people cooperate. Well, no, you didn't. You had a system where one set of people owned another set of people, and until women got full legal rights, they could own property for themselves. They could work. Essentially, they were owned. They were
You're
first
attributing their
owned
lower-
by their
you're
fathers and
attributing
then by their
lower
husbands.
status to the domination by men.
Yeah.
You already said that you thought that what emancipated women primarily in the 20th century was technological revolution.
No, not
Okay, so
primarily,
which
but
is
that's
it?
one of two. I think there's
It's
two
not
things.
primarily, eh?
No,
you don't
I-
think the pill was a primary force in the emancipation of women?
I think
or
it
the
was-
invention of tampons, let's say, or the provision of proper sanitary facilities, toilets, and that sort of thing. You're thinking instead it was the action of courageous feminists in the 1920s that produced a social revolution that overthrew the patriarchy. That's your theory.
Yeah, I
That's
think.
a foolish theory.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear you say that, but I think to quote you in the Kathy Newman interview, I think it's a multivariate, right? I think there are lots of different things that all contributed to
Well,
women
then
getting
let's
full
not
rights.
be assuming that Western society was a tyrannical patriarchy.
Well, no, that's
then,
one
as
of
a
them,
fundamental
and then
assumption.
other things happened as well. So you have the pill, you have the dishwasher and white goods, labour-saving devices in the home. I think all of those were really important. But you also had things like campaigns for the vote.
Yes, you also have things like that, yes.
So how, when in a system that existed in England until 1918, when half...
Why would you even want to look at history like that? Like, what's your goal?
Because I think the people who don't look at history are condemned to repeat it, and I think that we are...
What are we gonna do? Repeat the persecution of women? Do you think that's a realistic possibility?
Yeah, we're sitting
How
here...
do you see that?
We're sitting here in America, right, where we've just had a 5th judge appointed to the Supreme Court who is now anti-abortion, is now conservative. I think that abortion rights are absolutely fundamental to women being able to function as full humans in society, and I think that is now under threat in America. I think it is extremely smug and complacent to think civilization has peaked, it's all upwards from here.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, I suppose.
It's a living. There are lots of people who agree with me. There are lots of people clearly who agree with you.
There are just a lot of people, I would say, who are coming to listen to what I say because they're sick and tired of having their desire to move forward in the world and to achieve something and to take their place as adult males, let's say, who are under the weight of accusations that their ambition and forthrightness is a manifestation of something that's fundamentally tyrannical. They're not happy with that. It's not doing anyone any good, and it's also not true. It's really a terrible thing to do to young men, and it's happening all the time. That's why they're bailing out of universities like mad. There won't be a man left in the social sciences in 10 years in the universities, and it's no bloody wonder. It's an unhospitable place, and it's unhospitable precisely because of this doctrine. It said that throughout history, the fundamental relationship between men and women was one of power, essentially slavery. It's like, fine, believe it if you want. It's not going to do your relationships any good, I can tell you that. So.
Okay, well, we'll see how that one goes. I'm currently married, but I'll raise it with him. I think the university's example is a really fascinating one because you talk in the book about the fact that now women are a majority on 2/3 of college courses in the US. I've also seen you saying, well, you believe in equality of opportunity but not equality of outcome. Maybe women...
It isn't only that I don't believe in equality of outcome, I think it's an unbelievably pathological wish and doctrine.
Right,
and it's very dangerous. History has demonstrated exactly how dangerous it is. Equality of opportunity is something that anyone with any sense would support. But equality of outcome, it's...
So what's your problem with there not being...
You have to be confused beyond belief to support equality of outcome.
Okay, so what's your problem with there not being enough men in the social sciences? Perhaps women are just cleverer. Perhaps that's why there are more women at university, right? Under your doctrine. I don't think that, but that's
I think
the logical extension of your doctrine.
It isn't the fact that there's an unequal distribution. The problem I have with it is that the reason that men are bailing out is because of the prevalence of the doctrine that you're espousing. That's the problem I have with it. It doesn't matter that much. They will bail out. I don't see any way that the universities are going to redeem themselves in the next decade. So, and maybe that will be fine. But I doubt it.
That seems extremely pessimistic when the numbers of people going to university just generally are going up.
Yeah, well, that's not going to last for very long.
Why not?
Because it's too expensive and the universities are doing all sorts of things that aren't acceptable. Mostly racking up the price, ratcheting up the price. So, and decreasing the quality of what they're offering and playing into the hands of the people who are ideological acolytes of the identity politics routines and playing postmodern stunts and pushing neo-Marxism and all these things that are characteristic of the social sciences and the humanities primarily.
See, this is where I find you fascinating to me because, you talk in these quite apocalyptic terms. I think that, someone who will listen to that and think, wow, there's a really big problem. But what we're really talking about is some irritatingly postmodern professors and some students with blue hair and funny ideas about it.
Female. I think most of my graduate students have been female. It might be about 50-50, but I think it would probably tilt more in the direction of female. So it wasn't something I set out to do. I think, though, that, as I said earlier, well, I can't tell how much of it is merely a consequence of the fact that YouTube skews so male. It might also be something to do with the call to take on voluntary responsibility. I'm not exactly sure why that would be more necessary for men right now. I think it might be because our culture confuses men's desire for achievement and competence with the patriarchal desire for tyrannical power. And that's a big mistake. Those aren't the same thing, even a bit. So, and it's very inappropriate psychologically and sociologically to confuse them. So.
Well, one of the things I want to come back to is this idea. So that you say in the book, there is masculine order and feminine chaos.
And no, actually, I say that those are symbolic representations of the two things.
Right, okay. So why? Why is order masculine?
I think it's because our primary social hierarchy structures are fundamentally masculine.
And that's not the patriarchy.
Well, it's not the modern idea of the patriarchy, that's for sure.
I mean, that's my idea of the patriarchy, which is a system of male dominance in society.
Yeah, but that's not my sense of the patriarchy.
So what's yours?
Well, in what sense is our society male dominated?
The fact that the vast majority of wealth is owned by men, the vast majority of capital is owned by men. Women do more unpaid
It's a
labour.
very tiny proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely? What you're doing is you're taking a tiny substrata of hyper successful men and using that to represent the entire structure of Western society. There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
But I could say equally well that most rape victims are women. You know, terrible things happen to people of both sexes.
And you could say that with perfect utility, but that doesn't provide any evidence for the existence of a male-dominated patriarchy.
Well,
it just means that terrible things happen to both genders, which they certainly do.
But there are almost no women who rape men, for example. So that is an asymmetry there in sexual violence.
Well, yes, there's an asymmetry in all sorts of places, but that doesn't mean that Western culture is a male-dominated patriarchy. The fact that there are asymmetries has nothing to do with your basic argument.
No, but you might
This
equally...
is a trope that people just accept. Western society is a male-dominated patriarchy. It's like, no, it's not. That's not true. And even if it has a patriarchal structure to some degree, the fundamental basis of that structure is not power; it's competence. That's why our society works. It's only when a structure degenerates into tyranny that the fundamental relationships between people become dependent on power. It's not power. If you hire a plumber who's likely to be male, it's
Okay,
not
so
because there's
there he
roving bands of tyrannical plumbers forcing you to make.
There he is, right here. He's starting to come in a little bit better for you. His eye will be more clear. See, the eye's pretty clear. You got the pupil now. The ridge of his nose falls right here. His mouth is right here. Sideburns, ear. He's got a bald head, and he's gonna come in a lot of different ways. But he's got a Scottish look, I guess, because of the sideburns and the beard. It's one that I have not really pointed out and looked at in a long time, not since the beginning of all this, because I have my favorite images that I always look in at and stuff, and I'll mention some of these as I go along, but I always have my favorite. Probably my favorite ones are the ones that are a little darker, more evil. I'm not gonna pull out my cropper either, but I nose here with the big frowny puss going there too. You know.
Wait, well, you do talk about the guy who's the tampon king, the sanitary towel king of India,
I
right?
wouldn't call that nice.
Okay,
I'd
what
call
would you-
that brave.
Okay,
Did you read about his life when he was trying to develop that?
Yeah.
God, it was absolutely miserable, and he did it anyways. He
Right.
freed all sorts of women as a consequence.
And I think
It's
that
not
was-
nice. That's courageous. That's noble. That's visionary. It's not nice.
I think it is also nice. I think it is also something that is, it is honouring your social obligations.
I'm not so sure that that's a social obligation, because many other people would have done it had it been a social obligation. He said what he was concerned about. He saw that his wife was suffering with her monthly period, and had to choose between feeding her family and taking care of herself properly, and chose to feed her family and thought he would do something about that. That goes way past nice, especially given what he had to suffer through to do all the experimentation that produced his eventual technology. So, like, this whole patriarchy thing, I think you have no idea how pernicious and dangerous it is.
Well, no,
You
I
know,
don't.
men
I
and
really don't.
women
Go on.
throughout history have fundamentally cooperated to push back against the absolute catastrophe of existence. A terrible death rate, the probability of chronic starvation, early death, disease, the difficulty of raising children, with all the death that was associated with that. And to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchy. It's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men.
I mean, I absolutely disagree with you. I think that's like saying slavery in the US was actually most people cooperate. Well, no, you didn't. You had a system where one set of people owned another set of people, and until women got full legal rights, they could own property for themselves. They could work. Essentially, they were owned. They were
You're
first
attributing their
owned
lowest-
by their
you're
fathers and then by their
lower
husbands.
Status to the domination by men.
Yeah.
You already said that you thought that what emancipated women primarily in the 20th century was technological revolution.
No, not
Okay, so
primarily,
which
but
is
that's
it?
one of two. I think that's
It's
two
not
things.
primarily, eh?
No,
you don't
I-
think the pill was a primary force in the emancipation of women,
I think
or
it
the
was-
invention of tampons, let's say, or the provision of proper sanitary facilities, toilets, and that sort of thing. You're thinking instead it was the action of courageous feminists in the 1920s that produced a social revolution that overthrew the patriarchy. That's your theory.
Yeah, I
That's
think.
a foolish theory.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear you say that, but I think to quote you in the Kathy Newman interview, I think it's a multivariate, right? I think there are lots of different things that all contributed to
Well,
women
then
getting
let's
full
not
rights.
be assuming that Western society was a tyrannical patriarchy.
Well, no, that's
then,
one
as a
of them,
fundamental
and then
assumption.
other things happened as well. So you have the pill, you have the dishwasher and white goods, labour-saving devices in the home. I think all of those were really important. But you also have things like campaigns for the vote.
Yes, you also have things like that, yes.
So how, when in a system that existed in England until 1918, when half...
Why would you even want to look at history like that? Like, what's your goal?
Because I think the people who don't look at history are condemned to repeat it, and I think that we are...
What are we gonna do? Repeat the persecution of women? That you
Yeah.
think that's a realistic possibility?
Yeah, we're sitting
How
here...
do you see that?
We're sitting here in America, right, where we've just had a fifth judge appointed to the Supreme Court who is now anti-abortion, is now conservative. I think that abortion rights are absolutely fundamental to women being able to function as full humans in society, and I think that is now under threat in America. I think it is extremely smug and complacent to think civilization has peaked, it's all upwards from here.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, I suppose.
It's a living. There are lots of people who agree with me. There are lots of people clearly who agree with you. I wanted
No,
to.
there are just a lot of people, I would say, who are coming to listen to what I say because they're sick and tired of having their desire to move forward in the world and to achieve something and to take their place as adult males, let's say, who are under the weight of accusations that their ambition and forthrightness is a manifestation of something that's fundamentally tyrannical. They're not happy with that. It's not doing anyone any good, and it's also not true. It's really a terrible thing to do to young men, and it's happening all the time. That's why they're bailing out of universities like mad. There won't be a man left in the social sciences in 10 years in the universities, and it's no bloody wonder. It's an unhospitable place, and it's unhospitable precisely because of this doctrine. Said that throughout history, the fundamental relationship between men and women was one of power, essentially slavery. It's like, fine, believe it if you want. It's not going to do your relationships any good, I can tell you that. So.
Okay, well, we'll see how that one goes. I'm currently married, but I'll raise it with him. I think the university's example is a really fascinating one because you talk in the book about the fact that now women are a majority on 2/3 of college courses in the US. I've also seen you saying, well, you believe in equality of opportunity but not equality of outcome. Maybe
It
women...
isn't only that I don't believe in equality of outcome, I think it's an unbelievably pathological wish and doctrine.
Right,
It's
but
very
okay.
dangerous. History has demonstrated exactly how dangerous it is. Equality of opportunity is something that anyone...
I'm just going to mention some femininity as I'm looking around the moon. The moon, there's a lot of femininity. Not a lot, but there's femininity in the moon. Right here, these long eyelashes belong to this feminine face. Right now, we're getting the hair up here, the eye right here, obviously, with the long eyelashes coming out. And then this is the same image that I'm telling you Disney stole from It just looks like a Disney character. I don't even know that I can place it somewhere in the feline family at the moment at this particular angle. That's because the nose is right here. See the nose? Okay. So now it's actually going male, and I lose the eyelash. I have to do this. I have to crop it down to here somewhere to get that female. So this is probably the wrong angle because now I got eye, man's hairdo, nose, and mouth open. I'm gonna press play. This is usually the angle that I want it. Let's see. I'm letting it come further in. This is not working as an eyelash right now for me. Let me see if I can get it to go. Now I'd have to take the camera off the tripod and I have to change my angles, but I can do it. So anyone else can do it. I'm not gonna do it right now though, because I don't feel like fucking around. But again, eye, mouth open. It looks like he's blowing something out of his mouth. Looks in the human category, but there's feline facial colors. You know, right here. And the nose doesn't look. Yeah, I'd say it's still in the human category though. It's gonna go every category though. Obviously, when I move my camera around, change my angles of perception, and then that kind of thing. I'm gonna try not to talk. I'm just letting these go through.
Domination of a tyrannical male patriarchy, and that's true also particularly of the West, which is a doctrine I find absolutely unpalatable and historically absurd, biologically ridiculous, and ungrateful, among other things.
Who's ungrateful, sorry, in that? Who is being ungrateful?
Look at what you have.
Right.
You live in the best society that's ever been created. You know, I was reading about some Indonesians.
Do you mean me as a woman or me as a
I mean
21st
us.
century person in the world?
I mean us, yeah.
I mean, I'm
You-
incredibly grateful what I have, but to me the
Then how
project
is
of
it a
politics is...
construction of a tyrannical patriarchy? You're grateful for the productions of a tyrannical patriarchy. How does that make sense?
Okay, this is another female image that's going to be coming out. And she's got the low hanger breasts right here. And then she's got some higher running ones up here. She's got these larger shoulders. This actually breaks off. I could show you many things. There's image within image within image from the veil to the ground. And the moon is in the veil. So obviously it's going to be the same. But it's a full body image. You got an arm coming down this way. You're going to have an arm coming down this way that touches the leg down here. You'll probably get some pretty decent hands out of it, including fingers. The legs run down this way. You'll be able to see this as, again, image within image. You might get lost because it's face within face within face. But this does make up a really nice body image from a certain angle. If this ends up being the angle, I don't know if it is. If this is her angle for either one of them, I'll take the camera off and bring it to the other one. Let's see. Okay, also, this one right here is starting to come around as we're going around with the moon, as I'm turning. This is the one I was talking about that ends up being a barrel-chested African male, has the necklace on. This necklace ends up going silver and gold, changes in color as you're moving around. Big shoulders, barrel chest, and then again, I don't get wearing apparel. I just write it off as me seeing what I want to see. But he's got something on his head right here. His face comes in really clear. I can get his face clear. Body details, cut. In other words, muscular definition and all that kind of shit all comes in on this. And then as you're turning and as you're doing different angles with this area, he goes Eastern Indian, those nationalities. I don't know exactly which one because I'm not good at identifying all the nationalities. But anyways, that ends up being his face, and this is his upper body. Again, another one with body imagery, and also to show different nationalities, races, colors, and all that kind of stuff. So in other words, the true creator and the false creator and the creator all treat us all equally. We're the only ones. The humans are the ones that don't. I just push play.
Men.
Well, I think that's really interesting because male primary school teachers, for example, only 15% of them are men, and I interviewed some of them for my book. And you know what? They report exactly the same things that women do in male-dominated offices, right? They say, people have conversations that I feel excluded from. I feel stigmatized, like I shouldn't be here. People look at me askance when I say I'm a primary school teacher and I'm a man. They kind of reel back. We all make those implicit associations.
So if it is a structure that's dominated by women, then it's also a tyrannical patriarchy.
I think in that case, then men have a way of, they should be able to complain about the fact that a very female-dominated office leaves them feeling out too. Yeah, feeling left out
So
too.
how do we get something that isn't a tyrannical patriarchy? If it's composed of women, then it's a tyrannical patriarchy, and if it's composed of men, it's a tyrannical patriarchy. We're kind of out of options.
Correct, but, or you can have an office in which a blend of people of both
So if
sexes
it's
work.
50-50, then it's not a tyrannical patriarchy.
No, not 50-50. I'm saying that people...
40-60.
I'm saying that there is clearly, when there's only 15% of male primary school teachers, they do feel marginalised and excluded. So
you think the defining hallmark of a tyrannical social structure?
Okay. So you get lost in all the faces. So eye shining right at you, nose right here, mouth right here, and then that's the whole lower body of this feminine image I'm going to give you. See the low hangers? One there, one here. Those are the low hangers. The higher breasts are up here. These end up being her shoulders, which turn out to be, I'll show you in a second. Her arms come down this way. And again, her legs. If you can, again, it's all collaged. So you're going to have to pull out your cropping tool. I'm not pulling mine out right now. But to go in on these, hold on a second. Okay, so there's her face. Right here you'll see another face. You see a lot of faces actually, but right here is her other shoulder. Works as that face, and then I'm going to try to get you this one as well. Okay, so here's her higher breast, right? Yeah, so here's the higher breasts that work out in that image. I'm trying to stay up here because when I come down here, you're going to see eye, nose, and mouth of that large face. Now, this large face here with the this nose right here and this mouth kind of looks like the Joker a little bit. He actually, that image has a body image also. I'll pull back for it. The one down here that I was showing you, eye, nose, mouth, that ends up being the chest of this face right here. Watch. Trying to get it for you. There you go. So if I go like DA, you start getting the barrel chest and the stomach of that one. And here's the other one I was showing you from a different angle. Nose comes down, nose right here, mouth right here. There's the goatee and the sideburns with the ear all bald on top and everything. Try to get them for you. Back to her. So her arm comes down this way. She looks like she's got padding on, like I said, but I'm going to go in for these faces that make up her. There you go. Again, we see color, nationality that'll pop out in these. I'm going to put this. Hold on a second. I can get them better than this. Okay, here we go. Okay, and then this one here, if you notice, from the head down, again, we're bringing nationality and color in on this one, because that one looks like it's going to fall in the human category. But it's got a little bit of body imagery going on there. Come back for her body. Hold on. This one's a cool one too. I see the forehead, see the hairdo for nationalities, nose, mouth open down here. And then right next to him, of course, you got this one. Looks like it falls in the canine category at this angle. The eye, nose. Let's see. Yeah, this one's pretty cool too. Eye, nose, mouth here. See the hairdo? Goes up to the forehead on both sides. Hairdo up here for him. Then you got this really cool one too. It's a large one. Eye, nose right here with the mouth right here. You can see the teeth. See him? See his eye looking right at you? His eyeball. I could crop, but I won't. And right under that one, of course, is this one that I was trying to show you before. Eye, nose, mouth, using the same mouth. You can see the teeth, the lips. Got a little bit of a mustache going on this one. Back to her shoulders. Another angle. Okay, so again, digital collection of electromagnetic nanocarbon from the area we call the moon. So here we go. We'll probably get some facial features on this one. So right here, hold on a minute. Okay. So I'm going to move my camera around. This is the face we're going to be keeping an eye on. We're going to see which way it goes. This necklace right here, this silvery, still in a silver white necklace. Shoulders, these are going to work out to be the shoulders. But I might not have them at the right angle. We'll see. Because again, that's why we do 360s on the telescope with the camera. So I can do all this. Because you're pulling in the lights and shadows in different directions, that's why. So this might be better to put up at another angle, is what I'm getting at. Okay. Yeah, I can get them at a better angle than this. Another way too is to get rid of blurriness is to do photographs of the moon rather than video. You do lose some. Uh, you do lose something. Look how good this one comes. It's like this. Look at. All right. So now we got it in from the front. So eye. His nose is right here. And he's got this mouth open. He's got a big beard going on this way. Sideburns going up with the look at the beard stops here and you get neck area going down around them. That's how good it is. And I probably don't even have the right angle. Yeah, I could even get them better than that because you let's see, how about there, how about there. So just try your angles, test your angles. Once you catch on something, once you see something. Here we go. See the bald head, eye, nose, mouth, teeth and everything, beard. Going around. Okay, we'll see how it comes out. We'll see. Very good. Now I cut off the bottom of the beard when I come around on this angle, and you're only going to see him from more of a side view. So it changes up the image. And same thing with her. If I come at her at this angle. See her legs? This ends up being her belly and all her glory. She looks really good when I get her at a certain angle. She looks really tough because the waistline goes down and the shoulders blowed out. Anyways, go back in on this guy again for a minute. Alright, enough. I think I'm already at 47 minutes anyway. Let's see. Okay.
Steven Pinker, I'm sure you read what Steven Pinker says. You know, this is the least violent time in human history. So
Yes,
something
well, that's
is
a consequence
is
of
working.
patriarchal tyranny.
Well, if you think the patriarchy's been eroded over the last 100 years, maybe that's what it's down to. Maybe you could give some credit to it for that.
I actually didn't say that the patriarchy had been eroded.
Well, and you know, because you don't believe it existed in the first place. Fair enough. But my definition of multiculturalism is citizenship-based, right? So you can be both Canadian and First Nations. You can be both Quebecois and also Canadian.
But that means that everybody in the multicultural milieu is one thing and another.
Right.
They're all one thing and another.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
But
our
that's
Prime
the-
Minister said, well, there is no Canadian identity. It's like, well, okay, what is it that unites us?
Well, that-
Nothing. We all protect our cultures. It's like, well, that leads to war.
Okay,
That
well-
doesn't only lead to war, obviously, but unless you have people operating within a shared framework of perception and value, they can't cooperate and compete peacefully. I don't understand how that's even a disputable topic. That's how you organize people.
Okay, I
Shared set of
think if that's what he said, that's what Trudeau said, that is a dumb thing for the Prime Minister of Canada to say when you are Prime Minister of Canada. I
Yeah, you might say that.
would agree much more with what Barack Obama said when he said, I'm trying not to make a red states America or blue states America or white America, black America. I'm trying to make a United States America. That to me
Yes,
is
the Democrats are very good at that.
well, they
They've
try.
played identity politics for the last 20 years. All they've done is inflame tribal tendencies, as far as I can tell. So he can say that, but it isn't obvious that it's the case. And it's not obvious to me at all that one of the consequences of Barack Obama's presidency was a reduction in racial tension in the United States.
No, I wouldn't agree with that either. I think a lot of people found having a black college-educated professor very alarming and threatening to their idea of
Not
themselves as
enough
the
to stop
dominant
them,
group.
to stop them from voting for him twice.
No, that is very true. But again,
It's fundamentally true, right? It's really the crucial issue at hand here.
no, but he built a big coalition of white, well-educated liberals and people of colour. I mean, that is the Democrat
Well,
electoral.
how do you explain the rise of racial tension in the United States then?
Well, I think it's caused by a lot of things, not least of one of which is the Republican Party inflaming it. You talk about the left playing identity politics. I think the right play identity politics all the time.
The right doesn't dominate.
You're gonna see the
No,
craters
dominate
on the
if Donald
moon
Trump is
with
president.
your
So
own
realistically,
eyes.
It's hardly typical.
You're gonna see the craters
No,
on the
he
moon
lies
with your
and say that he-
own
if
For
eyes.
most of his life, if I remember correctly, he was a Democrat.
right, I don't think he has any
So we're not
political
going to blame Donald Trump.
allegiance
for
to
the
it.
way-
Okay, but I'm going to say the rest of the Republican Party are also
Fucking
quite happy to
zombies.
play. I would say white identity
Fucking
politics.
zombie motherfuckers.
They
man.
They did not dump him as their candidate when he said Mexicans. They're not sending us their best people here. They're rapists, right? The whole idea of the United States, it said, I think a beautiful thing. All men are created equal, but it meant men, and it meant specifically white men. Women and black people could not vote. The U.S. was founded on identity politics. This is not some new concept that has come along in the last 20 years.
The United States wasn't founded on identity politics.
Yes, it was.
That's absolutely absurd proposition. The United States was founded on the same principles that, what would you say, that played their powerful role through the development of English democracy. And that was nested inside a Judeo-Christian view that fundamentally presumed that both men and women were made in the image of God and that all people had divine value. And it took a long time for that set of ideas to fully manifest itself in the political realm. But to consider that a manifestation of identity politics is, I can't imagine why you would possibly do that.
I don't consider that a manifestation of identity politics. I consider having a constitution that says only some people are citizens to be a manifestation of identity politics.
Well, what do you think changed it across time? And look, let's get our definitions straight here. You can't lump all occurrences of non-equal treatment into the category of